Anna Phelan, president,
I beg your pardon?
President of the New Brunswick Equestrian Association. And we had reached out to our insurance provider. Well, we've been talking about it over the winter and the spring, and there's been a lot of new products that have been made available. And we thought we'd come together and try to inform the membership, and maybe the membership themselves has some specific questions. So I welcome Charity Tetro from the Greater Woodstock area. She actually lives in New Brunswick, and she's the representative that's going to join us this evening and bring us up to date with basically when you become a member of the NBEA, what do you get for that? And then also what additional products are there to purchase? And also they've come out with some new products in 2023. And it's such it's one of those necessary evils. We don't like to talk about it, but heavens, with what's happening in Canada with fires and people losing their homes and losing their animals and having to be evacuated, it's very timely that we talk about what's available to me as a horse owner, as a stable owner, for liability and, for those deadly fires, and just make sure that we ask questions to make sure that we do have the necessary protection for our animals. So I'm going to turn it over to Charity, and welcome, and thank you for all of those that are joining us this evening, and hopefully you'll get some needed information as well.
Thank you, Deanna, and thank you, Deanna and Nancy, for setting this up. And it's always great to get out and meet the membership, especially being that I am a New Brunswicker as well as a horsewoman here in the province. And today we're going to discuss what you get with your membership and what your options are and how you can better manage your risk with insurance, as well as some handy information, as Deanna mentioned, with the local wildfires in Nova Scotia, near St. Andrews that we've had in the province, things that you can do as an equine community that can help each other out in the event of a catastrophe or a forest fire. So I will just start with our PowerPoint presentation, and we can work through it as well. There will be a question period at the end. I can stop at the end of every product that we have that's available to you as a member, and we can look at answering questions at that time. There's a lot to go through, so I'll get started right now. Thank you.
While you're bringing this up, Charity, I'll just ask our participants to make sure your microphone is muted for now while Charity presents. If you want to put your questions in the chat, we can visit that after she's done presenting, or we can invite you to turn on your microphone at that time and join in. And one last housekeeping item, I've got this session being recorded. So just to make you aware of that.
Bear with me.
You had it there for a second, Charity.
I know. I'm sorry, I'm having technical difficulties. I was able to share it once, and now I'm getting a whole bunch of errors.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah.
Do you want me to try?
If you could, Nancy, I'm getting a whole bunch of sign-ins from Microsoft, so.
Oh, just what you want. Fingers crossed. Here we go.
Perfect.
Okay, just give me a nod or I'll advance.
Okay. So as I was mentioning, this is a webinar Zoom meeting in regards to the Provincial Equine Association program with New Brunswick Equestrian. I am with the Sarah Insurance. You can go to the next screen. So we are one of Canada's largest independent employee-owned insurance brokerages. Sarah was formed through the merger of 15 award-winning firms, and we have more than 60 years of serving local communities across Canada and 20 years of advocating with independent brokerages through the Canadian Broker Network. We are very proud at Sarah that we are 100% Canadian owned. We are also one of the largest insurance brokerages that is employee owned. So we were formerly Capri CMW. A lot of you will remember that before that we were inner city. So this move to merge with Rogers for Acera is going to help us in the future develop future programs and policies that we hope are benefit to our equine associations. We started developing equine policies and programs in 1998. Capri CMW and NBEA have been working together in local service to our equine industry for approximately 25 years. We provide coverage for all the equine provincial associations in Canada, except for Quebec, and most other breed and discipline organizations. In 2023, we are in service to approximately 100,000 equine industry clients across Canada under various programs. Next slide. So our coverage for the equine community includes liability, such as the membership liability for personal, commercial, or professional. We also have property for coaches, clubs, for the provincial associations, for members, for farms. We also have a large program for horse mortality and medical coverage. Next slide. In speaking as I did in the beginning about risk management and the spread of risk, it creates safer environments, it avoids uncertainty, and it provides stability. It reduces costs, improves insurability, and everyone should be aware of and apply a risk management procedure to eliminate accidents or minimize the possibility of an accident. In speaking to that, it goes back to, if there was a wildfire in your area, how could you as an equine community ensure that you could all help out to get everybody's horses to a safe destination? How could you help to evacuate? So those are all parts of a risk management program, such as forming with your local clubs a list of who has a horse trailer, how many horses could you haul, do you have the ability to stable any horses, how many could you stable? That gives you a great knowledge base that you can access in the event that there was some form of a catastrophe, whether natural or man-made, and that would help the community as a whole to be able to plan to access that information and get everyone safe as possible. Next slide. The value in membership: you have access to an affiliation with the broader equine community in New Brunswick. Government advocacy with COVID went through the NBEA. Automatic insurance coverage with your membership, which is invaluable for the liability that protects you. And then education and all things equine. So 2023 members insurance. With the basic membership, everyone receives $5 million in personal liability insurance for any number of horses, any number of activities, and anywhere in the world. So if you go to the US and you participate in a show, your liability covers you in the US for any claims. Those claims must be brought forth to Canada for the coverage to respond, but that liability is there to protect you. In the case of a wildfire, if you had to let your horses loose, that personal liability is there to protect you if they were happen to do third-party property damage while they were being evacuated from a catastrophe or a natural disaster. You're also provided with the $40,000 accidental death and dismemberment coverage for equine-related accidents, including traveling to and from an equine event. And I have seen those claims come in where people are trailering to an event and there's an accident, and this AD&D coverage has responded to help them for their accident-related injuries. It also gives you access to member insurance, such as horse mortality. You can increase your accidental death and dismemberment to $75,000 now. Weekly accident indemnity, which is an income replacement insurance policy, emergency life-saving surgery, and emergency stabling expense coverage. Next screen. So the first one that you have access to is horse mortality, which is called members named perils. And it provides you 10,000 in coverage, maximum for any one horse and any one registered member per policy period. So in layman's terms, this means if you have the death of a horse by any of those following perils that are named below: fire, lightning, explosion, smoke, collision or derailment of a railroad vehicle, or a trailer that the horse is being transported in, this policy would cover up to 10,000 for one horse. So if you had two horses that passed away in a trailering accident, one of them was worth 9,000 and the other one was worth 2, you would only get coverage for the 1 to 9,000. And it only covers for the death from one of the perils named in the policy, such as I was explaining: fire, lightning, collision, sinking, accident to an aircraft, objects falling from an aircraft, windstorm or hail, earthquake or flood. Flood is an important one in New Brunswick. Accidental shooting, unless by you or your employee. Electrocution by an artificially generated electric current, which is lightning. An attack by dog or wild animal, collapse of a building, drowning, destruction or order by public authority arising from a reportable disease, which has to be under a regulation from the provincial authority. And you're paid, I believe it's two times the compensation paid by the provincial authority. So if they determine that they'll only pay 3,500 per horse, then you would get 7,000. Impact of the horse with a vehicle other than a vehicle owned or operated by or in the care, custody, and control of yourself, an employee, or an agent of. So is there any questions in regards to horse mortality? If anybody wants to make notes, I can do a question and answer period at the end.
I have
Charity.
one, Charity.
Mm-hmm.
Talks about this policy will respond if there's a trailering accident,
Mm-hmm.
if the animal perishes in a trailering accident. Is that if it's your own horse in your own trailer, or someone
Yes.
else's in your trailer, or what's the combination there that's
So
covered?
for members named perils, it only responds to your own horse. You have to own the horse. You have to have some proof of ownership, a bill of sale, a gift letter, veterinarian documents that you've owned the horse or recorded as the owner. For the membership, we have 10,000 in coverage if you're hauling the horse of another's. So if I'm hauling your horse, Nancy, to a show and I have an accident and you say that it was my fault because I had care, custody, and control of your horse at the time that I was transporting it, and you sued me, I would then have $10,000 in coverage to respond to that lawsuit. So it's only when the owner of a non-owned horse that you are transporting sues you for the damages done to their horse if they're injured.
Gotcha. There was another voice. Was there another question?
Oh, I was just going to mention, in the event of a claim, you would require a vet certification or autopsy for confirmation of cause of loss.
Yes.
Yeah.
We always recommend not to remove a deceased horse's body until you've made the claim and received instruction from the claims team that you're okay to dispose. We can move on. So this is some FAQs on members named perils. If my horse dies, who will determine the fair market value of my horse? The burden of proof value falls to the insured. So a bill of sale, show and breeding records, or a third-party opinion provided by an industry professional, so that's a trainer, all help to establish the value. Do you need medical coverage for sickness and accident for my equine partner, and where can I get it? You can purchase a private policy. This policy only responds to the death of an owned horse. It doesn't respond to any accident or sickness. Coverage for them in the event that they're hurt in an accident. So a private policy can be purchased to cover that mortality and medical for your equine partner. And those rates start at about $240 annually. And if you wanted more information, it goes on a per basis. So just contact our office, and Shannon or I would be happy to answer any questions for you. So does this cover my horse if it gets sick or injured? This coverage is mortality only and for named perils of the policy, which we reviewed. It does not respond to indemnify for veterinarian's fees or for accidents or sickness. And the coverage is $25 per member. So very insignificant for the coverage that you would receive if you had a claim. Next. So your basic AD&D, this comes with your liability. This year for 2023, we're seeing an increase in the AD&D coverage from 30 to 40,000 included with your basic membership. This coverage is enforced 24/7, and it covers you anywhere in the world while participating or traveling to or from an equine activity. It's not a short-term or long-term disability, nor does the coverage respond for lost wages, and it's for Canadian residents only. So basic AD&D covers permanent loss of vision, hearing, limb, or movement, and death as detailed in the policy wordings. The insurer will pay up to $5,000 for injury to whole or sound teeth arising from an equine-related accident, and it pays according to the Provincial Dental Association fee guide, and treatment must occur within 30 days of the date of the accident. It does not cover loss of income or wages, partial disability, fracture injuries, or dental injuries that are not emergent, and short-term or long-term disability benefits. And that is the basic AD&D that is covered with your basic membership. That's automatically included. Next slide.
Oops, sorry. There we
That's
go.
okay. Optional AD&D is 75,000 principal sum. It was 50. It was increased this year to 75,000. It's worldwide coverage. It provides a lump sum payment if you suffer from a listed or scheduled injury that arises from participation in equine related activities. The amount payable depends on the injury sustained, and either a multiple of a principal sum or a portion of the principal sum is the claim payout. It covers permanent loss of vision, hearing, limb, or movement and death. It also covers fractures. It also gives you accidental dental reimbursement of up to $5,000 for whole and sound teeth. Treatment has to occur within 30 days. And these coverages only respond to equine-related accidents. That could also include on your route to an equine related activity. So even though you're not on the horse, if you got kicked by somebody else's horse, if you fell out of a horse trailer while you're at a horse show, this policy would respond to help. And the annual cost per member is $45. Does anyone have any questions on the optional AD&D? Okay, if it comes up, just ask at the end. So weekly accident indemnity is the policy that is your income replacement. So it provides up to $500 per week in income replacement for up to 26 weeks. The maximum that you can claim is 70% of your income. So it's either or 70% or 500 is the maximum. There is a 7-day waiting period for coverage and benefits to begin. You have to be a resident of Canada. You must be employed a minimum of 25 hours per week. Self-employment is considered, and you must be under the age of 75 years old. So you have to have filed an income tax return to Canada Revenue Agency in the most recent year in order to claim from this. And benefits are paid without income tax withheld. So the maximum benefit cannot exceed 75% of income to the limit of insurance. So sorry, it wasn't 70%, it's 75% of your income, or the 500 is your limit. That cost is $195 per member. It's not prorated if purchased midterm in a membership. So none of the coverages are prorated. If you purchase them in August, you would pay the full premium for the year, and you would go till January when your membership expires. Any questions here? Okay. Emergency life-saving surgery. This goes hand in hand with the member's name perils. This insurance provides coverage for your horse or horses in the event that your horse requires emergency life-saving surgery, which is necessitated by an accident or sickness, which includes colic surgery or fracture. The limit of coverage is $2,500, maximum for any one horse, any one loss per term. So you can only claim once a year for one horse. So if I own 3 horses, if one of them needed this, I would exhaust the coverage for the year for the other 2. Your deductible is $250, and the equine must have undergone surgery deemed life-saving and under general anesthetic by a licensed veterinarian for the coverage to respond. So a vet has to deem that the surgery is life-saving, and it has to be done under general anesthetic. And the cost per member annually is $60 for that. Any questions in regards to emergency life-saving surgery? Okay, TAC coverage. This is an excellent one as well. We're all horse owners and we all have a barn full of TAC. Another good risk management suggestion that I have is in the spring, I take all my TAC out and I take photos of it so that if I had a loss, I know what I have, so that it's easy to access. The same goes if you have a fire. For fires, sorry, if you have a homeowner's policy, go around your home once a year and take a video of your house, open cupboards, open closets, take a video quickly and stash it off site or in your phone. And then you have something to access if you have a total loss. It's a lot to go through. So it's a great risk management for you to help you through a claims process. So back to TAC coverage. This coverage provides coverage on a replacement cost basis for direct physical loss or damage of TAC, subject to policy exclusions. $10,000 coverage for any one loss, any one membership per year. So if you had a $5,000 saddle stolen, that would exhaust your coverage for the year, and it's a $500 deductible. Does not cover wear, tear, or deterioration. So that's age and use over time. Mysterious disappearance. So if I leave my saddle on the fence at a show and somebody walks off with it, it wasn't under lock and key, that's considered mysterious disappearance. Or any damage incurred while TAC is sent for repair or refinishing. It's also important, like I mentioned, to take photos, to have proof of ownership. Receipts, photographs, serial numbers, etc. are wonderful to have. Greenhawk is absolutely fantastic. And I think Nordstrom is as well for keeping an account for you where you can access everything you've purchased over the years. The definition of TAC for this program is property usual to the care and training of a horse, including bridles, bits, halters, saddles, and equipment used for training, martingales, nose bands, blinkers, figure eights, coolers, fly sheets, night sheets, ice boots, bell boots, interfering pads and boots, and similar equipment, muzzles, bibs, straps, whips, rope hay bags, manure baskets, cooler racks, medicines, grooming equipment and supplies. It does not cover for riding clothing, helmets, or protective vests. It doesn't, those are all considered clothing for the rider and not TAC. And the annual premium for that is $50 per member. Was there any question in regard to the TAC coverage?
I have a question regarding that. If you purchased elsewhere other than Greenhawk or Nordstrom, you bought it like online through Kijiji or Marketplace or a personal contact, how do you justify, or do you need to get a receipt, like a point of sale receipt when that purchase was made? And
that's where, yeah,
if you
photographs would come in
how do you?
really handy. If you had a photograph showing that you owned it.
Okay.
Yeah, with the serial numbers, not everything has serial numbers, but take photographs and have them on hand. It's a replacement cost, so you don't have to prove the value when you purchased it. They pay you up to the total amount of $10,000 for the replacement cost of it.
Okay, so a photograph works. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. Okay, moving on. The new coverage this year is emergency stabling expense. This insurance provides coverage for increased expense incurred to stable your horse at another premises due to the perils of fire, windstorm, collapse, or a disease which makes the usable stabling temporarily unsafe or unusable. So say there was a outbreak of EHV at your stable and you had to remove your horse to protect them. That would be covered under this policy. Coverage is $500 per month for any one insured horse for a maximum of 4 months. 5,000 any one membership per calendar year, irrespective of the number of horses. So it doesn't matter how many horses you have. It's 500 per month, maximum 4 months. And then you have a coverage limit of 5,000. Your deductible is $500. This policy does not cover expenses for those who typically stable or manage their horses at home. So if you have your own barn and your own facility, this policy wouldn't respond if you had to move your horses to another facility and incurred that expense. The burden of proof is on the insured to prove the increased costs incurred. So say you have to show a boarding receipt that you pay $400 at barn A and you had to move your horse to barn B that charges $475, you would be reimbursed for that additional cost. And that has to be reported within 14 days of moving your horse because of the displacement. The annual premium there is $25 per member. Is there any questions in regards to emergency stabling expense?
Charity,
Okay.
is it paid $500 per month for one horse? I'm just working through the math.
That's
Is that paying
$2,000.
the difference between what you normally pay for board and what a more expensive facility would charge? Or is it
Yes.
the flat rate?
No, it's paying the increased expense.
Okay,
Yeah. So
Okay.
if barn A is charging you 200 and barn B charges 700, then you have
Okay.
an increased expense of 500 per month.
okay.
Yeah.
But if it was only $75 a month more expensive, that's what they would,
That's what you would be paid out. Yep.
got it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next slide. That's it. We've gone to the end. So does anybody have any questions in regards to liability, how it covers you? Okay, Whitney.
Just
So that's where your liability comes into play. If your horse escapes from its paddock and gets out on the road and gets hit by a car, your liability coverage, that 5 million liability, responds to defend you. And most auto insurance companies do subrogate in regards to livestock accidents. So that's a very common claim that happens, is people being sued by the auto insurance company.
Charity, is this an excess liability policy in play?
No, it's not excess.
Is it primary policy?
It's a primary policy for yourself. Yep.
Cool. So it's in replacement of any agribusiness or CGL you may have in
Well,
play.
Yep. Well, a CGL would be covering your commercial operations with equine or livestock, and this covers only the personal use and ownership of a horse.
Right. But it's not an excess policy. I thought originally it was an excess policy, which is only triggered when the underlying policy is exhausted. So cool. Thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you. It was a great question.
And Charity, we get a lot of questions at the office about people say, I already have my home ownership and, I have my home insurance and that covers my horse. And I doubt sometimes it really does cover the horse and if the horse does leave the property. So what's your take on if I have my house insurance and does it really include my tack and my horse?
Some home insurance policies will include tack under sports equipment. Very rare. None of them will insure a horse. No home insurance policy will extend to livestock liability.
So if that horse that got loose on that previous question, if that horse had gotten loose and caused an accident, your house insurance is not going to take care of that.
No,
Exactly.
no.
Yeah.
You need to have your membership liability. You
Right.
need to have an agri policy, a farm insurance policy, in order to have livestock liability. So if you had a personal farm insurance policy, that would respond to cover your equines if they got off the property, but it won't cover them past leaving the property. So if I took my horse to a show, my
Right.
farm insurance isn't going to cover my horse to the show. It's not
Right.
going to follow. It'll follow if the horse leaves the property and gets hit from escaping the property, but not when I take it.
There's another question in the chat. If hosting a coach on my property and a friend brings her horse here and rides under the coach, ends up hurt, am I covered with basic membership? Is the answer different if she was riding my horse?
So your basic membership covers you. So if your horse hurts somebody else or backs into a car and sits on their fender and you're sued, your membership responds to protect you. In that case, does that coach have insurance? Are they insured for their coaching operations, which automatically include landowners? But then you also, it's a bit of a catch-22 because you need to make sure that your farm policy is, or your homeowners is okay with you having equine coaches on your property, because that's considered a commercial equine exposure. So you are covered under your basic membership if your horse does something to those people while they're on their property, but they're not covered by your basic membership if they get hurt.
Yeah, and that's a good question, Charity. I mean, for all of you that are on the line this evening, and you have coaches coming onto your property, you need to make sure that you ask to see their proof of insurance. And please don't think that all coaches in New Brunswick have insurance. And does it cover them when, does my insurance cover me at my barn, but does it cover me when I go to someone else's barn? So just like anything else, people, drop the ball and get complacent and they don't have insurance. So believe me, if that coach is coming onto a property and someone falls off and gets hurt, that coach is going to be responsible. They're going to start with the coach. And then if they're on your horse, then you may be dragged into it if that person is injured, like seriously injured. So I really encourage everyone to make sure that the people you bring onto your property, the professionals, whoever they are, come with their own liability insurance. And that's first and foremost. And please don't think because they think they're a professional that they have insurance, because a lot of them don't. They really don't.
It's an excellent risk management plan to ask to see confirmation of insurance for anyone who's doing a commercial exposure on your property.
Yeah.
You can be hauled into it, and that's something we see quite often with claims where people are being sued. They name the landowner, they name the coach, they name the person who owned the horse, even if they weren't even on site at the time of the claim. They'll name everybody that they can try and get blood from a stone, right? So you have to protect yourself in that aspect. And like Deanna said, not everybody who puts a shingle out that they're a coach does the risk management involved of getting the proper insurance to make sure that they and their clientele and landowners where they're operating are covered for their operations. So that's something definitely to be checking into.
Sure.
That's one of the motivations behind Equestrian Canada's coach status program.
Mm-hmm.
One of the requirements is proof of insurance. So if your coach is registered or licensed by Equestrian Canada, then they have insurance coverage and they provided that proof to EC. People are a little shirty about the EC program and the costs and so on, but this is the kind of thing that they're looking at big picture wise. These are coaches who have safety training, the first aid, and the insurance behind them.
And the vulnerable sector checks, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
That's
exactly.
very important.
Yep.
Yep. Okay. Are there any other questions for Charity? I do encourage all of you that are attending this evening, if you have questions, maybe you own a professional barn, or maybe you just have people come over and ride your horses behind your house, whatever it is, please feel free to get in touch with Charity and just run your scenario by her, right? Like I'm not a professional, but my girlfriends come over and I teach her kid at night and blah, blah, blah. Okay. You've all got a scenario, and run it by Charity and make sure that you have the right protection. And the same thing if you're running a commercial barn, or you're doing sleigh rides or hay rides or trail rides or whatever you're doing. I just want people to make sure they're protected. Enjoy horses. Enjoy spending time and sharing your sport and your horses with your family and friends and whatever, but they are horses and they can be dangerous and they can do crazy things, and we're not always negligent, but if you cause harm to other people, someone has to take care of those people. So that's all I make sure is that you have insurance. It's a necessary evil. I pay thousands of dollars every month to insure my house and my car and my truck and my trailer, and it goes on and on and on. But as we watch all those fires happening all over Canada and hear some of those poor people say, well, I don't have insurance, I do, my heart goes out to those people. So please reach out to Charity if you've got a question for what you're doing, and she can certainly help you on an individual basis. There's another question there, Nancy.
I'll get to the ride and drive one in a second.
Okay.
Nika asks, back to trailering and members named perils. My horses are covered if I am driving, or does someone else need to be driving for the coverage to work?
Your horses are covered if you're trailering them and there's a trailering accident and they perish because of it. The exclusion of the policy is if you hit your own horse with a vehicle. So if you hit your own horse with your truck, then you're not covered. There's no coverage. You can't run over your own horse. Unfortunately, I don't know any of us who have, but freak accidents can happen.
Yeah.
So another thing I wanted to mention about the liability for your member benefits is the personal use and ownership. And this is one of the number one questions that I do get is, my neighbor comes over and they have a little girl who loves horses and I'm giving them a free lesson once a week. Yes, that's covered as long as there is no monetary value exchanged for a lesson or a service that you're providing. Your membership will respond to cover you. As soon as you trade eggs once a week for a lesson, or there's a monetary value being exchanged, that becomes the commercial use of a horse, and the policy will not respond to that. You then have to go into the realm of a commercial policy for your lessons. And they do start at about $650 per year. Just to give you an idea, if you're looking at, okay, well, if I was to take my neighbor's kids on, what would I need? And how much would that cost to start up? But that is one of the number one questions. Were there any other questions? And as Deanna said, I am available Monday to Friday. I'm in the office from 8 o'clock till 4 p.m. 9 o'clock till 5 p.m. New Brunswick time, 8 to 4 Ontario. And I welcome any question. All questions are good questions. And if the more educated we are, the better decisions we can make for ourselves. So please feel free to reach out to me if anything comes up after this webinar or in the future.
Right. Okay. So any more questions before we say goodnight? And remember, Nancy has it videoed as well or recorded, so you can always go back and check the information.
I've just popped a link in the chat for the person who wants information on the Ride and Drive program. And I think I will also, if you bear with me, put a link to the FAQs and so on on our insurance program webpage, if it will let me. There we go. Oh, sorry, there we go. In the meantime, thank you to Charity for all the time she's put into preparing for tonight and for sharing her expertise so eloquently. there's your link to our insurance program page.
That's great. So thanks to all of you that took the time to join in. If you have other questions about other things you'd like us to host, please let us know. In the meantime, have a great summer with your go out and enjoy your horses as you can, and keep in touch with the NBEA if you have other areas of concern or interest that we could help shed some light onto that. So thanks for joining, and Charity, thanks for the information.
Thank you everyone for having me.
Good
Thank
night.
you.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.